All right, so pretty much our project is trying to look into like racism at UT, and specifically we're looking at like the student community, I guess. So do you feel any presence of racism at UT towards any communities, and like where, if you have?
Um, I honestly, after Brittany was saying this, was trying so hard to think about any specific overt, very direct acts of racism that I've seen, and I do not recall any. I do know, talking to some of my other graduate student friends that are students of color, say that it's not the overt ones that they've experienced as students. It's more of just the microaggressions, the small things, the just nuanced things that are still racist and still cause problems, but aren't the kind where like everybody around you goes, whoa, 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 no, whoa, whoa, no, kind of thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Do you think there's anything about like the social culture at UT that reflects like maybe racist attitudes?
As a graduate student looking at the undergraduates, I am surprised. One of the things that I found very surprising, and I think this answers your question, is, so first of all, I'm from a really small town in Tennessee. It is, I think, 75, 80% white. And so coming to Austin was awesome in terms of getting to live in a more diverse place and go to a way more diverse school than I've ever taught at, that I've ever attended. And then really looking at the student organizations and what I see and how I see students on campus, and what I don't see a lot of. I feel like a lot of people stick to the people that they know, if that makes sense. That, and I know some organizations are built around that. Like one of my students is in the, I forget what it is, but it's a specific organization and it's for African American students, is my understanding. And I know that those type of organizations are inherently geared towards specific groups of people. But I find, as an outsider, that the groups that aren't specifically intended to address the needs of one population, that are meant to be cross-cultural and those sorts of things, that, you know, it's not like Hispanics pre-dental association, I think that's one. Unless it is something like that, like I don't see a lot of diversity within groups, I feel like. And I thought that that was really surprising. Like, it's like, oh, this is a club, they're all a bunch of white girls. This is a club, it's the Filipino club, you know, like that sort of thing. And I think that was really surprising for me, that there were that much divisions, like that a lot of people really did feel like they were divided on racial lines, even though they weren't intended to be.
It was intended to be more empowering. Is that what you're saying, I guess?
Right. Like, so I know that I'm imagining anybody can join. So taking like the Black Health Professionals Club organization, I'm imagining anybody can join, but it's a group that, my understanding, is specifically meant to meet the needs and help bolster and support students of color in that specific subject area. But then organizations that aren't dedicated to one particular thing or the other aren't very diverse.
Okay, so the last question, or like the last aspect of our project, is about how UT is grappling from its history of racism. So have you felt any like progression that UT has made? Is there any like manner of like how we have changed?
One change that I thought I read in the UT newsletter recently was that the Painter Hall entrance being renamed. That after, I cannot remember the other name, but there was a lawsuit incident when Painter was president that kept a Black student, I think, out of UT or out of a certain department. And so they've gone back, and now in the foyer of the building named for the man that kept him out is now going to be some sort of space dedicated to remembering that aspect about it too. And I feel like since I've been here since 2015, there have been small projects like that. Buildings have either been renamed or portions of them have been repurposed for recognizing other people's contributions. So I've seen that. And I think the other thing that I have seen that I find really exciting in some ways is actually the classes that I actually teach for the 311C, you know, have undergraduate course assistants. And I am really happy, like looking around the table, that it feels so culturally inclusive, not just
Mhm.
of races, but of ideology, you know, like LGBTQ presence, like in terms of like when you think about like America's a melting pot, everybody's here, da 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 da. It's like that's what I feel like when I think about the teaching team. But then what's funny is I've made those comments to other people, or comments like, I feel like UT in Austin, the most diverse place I've ever lived. And then there are people who have come from more diverse places than I have, which, you know, like I said, was rural Tennessee. And so I don't know if, like, I've made comments before, I'm like, this is good, look at this. And then there have been times where people have come back and been like, you only think that because you grew up in a predominantly white rural farm community,
Mhm.
if that makes sense. And so I think that's one of the other big things about